All right.
Yeah.
Craig White.
Real estate extraordinaire, 15 years as a top agent, a top leader, has become a good friend, which I'm grateful for, and just someone I've learned a lot from. And as I always say, none of us is as smart as all of us. And Craig definitely exemplifies that and is very collaborative in everything he does, and just a real connector with his colleagues and with his clients, for sure.
Yeah. I love it. And you didn't let me say, welcome to the Fire Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys and the nice words, and feel the same. You know, we've known each other for a long time. So love the energy, love the vibes. Really appreciate everything you do. So, yeah.
Take us back to the beginning. You didn't start as a realtor.
No. I actually spent 18 years in the tech industry before getting into real estate. So started off in semiconductors, inside sales rep, went into outside sales for active components. Went from that, 9/11 hit. After that hit, I got into software, security software. Company bought out by Microsoft, company Frontbridge Technologies, which was awesome. Met some extraordinary people in that business, like high level, really smart, driven, focused, but genuinely just good folks. And then kind of started working with some startups, and at the age of 38 I decided that I was done with the tech industry. I met a friend of ours, Pete Bonacore, if I can give a shout out to Mr. Pete. Pete Bonacore, I met at an open house. And I've actually just told this story last night, and I don't know if it's going to sound appropriate or not, but Pete and I met, and that was 15 years ago. And I was debating whether I was going to stay, what I was going to do. I had recruiters from tech calling me because I've been around forever, had a good name, had great clients, NFL, NBC, CBS, Disney, like had big folks. And I met Pete, and we just rapped for a while, and I was like, what's it take to make $100 grand? Like, give me the barometer. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was obviously looking to make more.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm like, give me the barometer. What's it take to make $100 grand in this business? He was like, you got to sell 5 million. I'm like, what's the average price of a house? 1.5 to 2. I'm like, all right, so I got to sell 3 homes to make $100 grand. I think I can do that. You know?
That's great. That's very simple, and that's a great perspective for many people out there. Yeah.
So and
in this price point, which
was very lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, even in areas where the price point is way less, that analysis is a good analysis. Yep. So it's like, okay, well, this is not, 100 grand is not a number that's going to make me delighted or live the life that I want. But what's that point? So it's a good question for people thinking about going into real estate. So what's that point that, that tipping point, that number? And then in your price point, how many sales does it take to do that? And then what does it take to make that many sales? And now you're breaking it down into something that's very understandable.
Well, so that gave me kind of that, like you said, that gave me the barometer. So it's like if it's 5 million to make 100, then it's 10 to make 2. Yeah. So then I have the delta in my head of like, what are my goals and how do I get there? And and what do I, is this what I want to do? And then I started going to open houses, and I was like, oh my God, like no offense, but there's some questionable. Yeah. I'll be nice.
Yeah.
Right. So there was some questionable people that I had met, and I was like, how in the hell are you doing this?
Yep.
Like no knowledge of the neighborhood, no interaction with the person. And I like, me, I like to interact. I'm like, hey, tell me about the house. Well, it's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and sitting on the couch watching a football game. I'm like, seriously, I would be so pissed off.
Yes.
If I was a seller.
Yeah, if the owners only knew is one of the things I always say.
We say it all the time to each other.
How are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you're selling my house, I'm coming in here and you're getting the hell out.
Yeah.
Like, bounce, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm paying you like a lot of money, sitting in a $1.5 million home.
Yeah.
You have the potential to make, 30 grand or whatever that may be. Like, I'm paying you that, and you're going to sit on my couch and watch football and not interact.
And the
with
owner
people?
may not even know this, but and then it's one of the best opportunities to gain additional clients. And
Totally.
you're still, it's
They're
amazing.
still not doing it.
They're still not doing
There's
it.
a lot that a realtor can do in an open house, obviously, to facilitate the sale of the house, but also sitting on the couch is like, it's also, there's one of the best ways to build your business.
100%. That's how I built my business.
Yeah.
And the things are going hand in hand.
Yeah, but it is amazing how poorly so many, even at the very high end, it still amazes
shocking.
me. Yeah.
From the time you meet Pete, you make that decision, how long does it take you to make your first sale, and what does that look like?
So
how long till you made the decision? I'm curious about that. And then
it was almost instantaneous. I mean, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I met a couple people that weekend at open houses. I'm like, if these guys can do this, I got it.
Yeah.
I come from a corporate background.
Yeah.
I've been working from home for most of my career, probably the first 7 as an inside sales rep. But I mean, I had East Coast territories. You're grinding on the phone all day long. So
you went to, so at that point you had not started the licensing process yet.
No, I just actually connected back with Pete, and I just said, hey, this is what I want to do. And we would meet maybe every couple of weeks for lunch, and he would just talk to me about the process and where are you in it, and this is where I'm at. Pete was awesome. I appreciate him to this day.
Yeah,
it's so smart though, because one of the best ways to figure it out is to go to somebody that you resonate with. So that way there's some similarities, and then find out what's their process like. Yeah. And I think people are hesitant to do that because they think, why does this top agent want to tell me stuff? And mostly, very few people ask them.
Yeah.
So,
and the right people appreciate giving back, right? And
that's what I was going to say. Like, it's the right person.
Yeah.
Like, there's some top agents that you go to them and they shut down and they're like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to help you? Like, I'm not going to create more competition for myself.
Yeah. Very short-sighted.
Very short-sighted. Pete was super, super helpful.
Yeah.
I went through the licensing process. That took me about 4 months. Mm-hmm. I think at that point it was like
a lot easier.
Okay. Yeah. It was like
timing-wise,
three tests or 3 courses and a test.
Yeah.
And I was drilling on it. Like, I spent every day until like I would max out what I could do. Yeah. Like, this is all I can do today, because it won't let me. They will shut you out and say no more today. I'm like, all right, I won't do it. Pick back up the next day and just crank through it.
Wow.
And I was done with my courses, waiting for my test. They made you wait a month to get your to get your test date.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I preloaded my fingerprints.
Wow.
I was ready, man. I had everything done.
Yeah.
And then, like, right when I got my test, so that if you preload everything, fingerprints, background check, all of that crap, once you're done, you get you pass your test, you're in.
You're in. Yep.
If you wait, then you got another month to go. I'm like, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm doing that. So,
and if the statement is true, as you do one thing, you do
everything.
That's a good indication right there. Just that alone.
Yeah.
I'm already.
Once you make a commitment, you're all in. And
I'm good. I'm like, this was a career. I was 38 years old. I came from a salary and a bonus and commission structures. Like, this wasn't.
Yeah, there was no playing around.
There wasn't a plan B. Like, I need to make money at this, and I'm not. Maybe my expectations were not. I'm going to be a gazillionaire, but I'm in this because I have a mortgage payment.
Yeah,
and I have car payments, and I'm not. And no offense to the 20-somethings, because I think that there's some phenomenal people that are young in this business, but I didn't have the luxury of like a plan B.
Yeah,
I had spent 18 years in a career already. So this was like, I'm leaving something that I know really well, that I have a great reputation in, and I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
And it was,
That's a courageous move.
That is
sure.
Crazy.
So coming back to Paul's question, first deal, how long did it take? Tell us a little bit about that.
I sat an open house, and I know this insanely well. I sat an open house off of Irving in Hancock Park, and it was a duplex created into a single family home. And it was crap, but it was the lowest price home in Hancock Park. So every weekend, it was flooded.
Yeah.
Literally flooded.
And how did you get the open house?
Pete.
Okay.
It was one of our office. I think it was either like Red's or his or somebody's.
Right.
And Pete made sure, he's like, I want you to go around and introduce yourself to everybody. Tell them I had told you to come over. Like, he gave me his endorsement and his stamp.
Yep.
You know, I sent you to come over. Hey, Pete told me to come over
Yeah.
and meet you, Josh. Just want to let you know I'm here if there's open houses, and that's how I got it. And I sat that thing every week. He also taught me, like, I sat my first couple open houses with him, like, and just kind of watched him work. And I brought a sheet with every open house that weekend within that price point around the area.
So smart.
Because there was nothing in Hancock Park or Larchmont that was even near that price point. But I went on the peripherals.
Yeah.
And I looked. So in the peripheral neighborhoods, here's
You get
15
something
houses.
better at that price.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You may not walk into a thing that looks like it's ready to fall down.
Yep.
You may actually be able to get a good home. So I did that, and that was one of his ideas, Pete. I still do that to this day.
Yeah,
That's smart.
But that's an example of the extra mile, or the the extra degree. 210 degrees, you have very hot water.
Yeah.
2 more degrees, 212, you've got steam, and hot water is good. You can cook with it. Steam can power a city.
Yeah.
Steam can and it's just, and the difference is small, and the net effect is
Significant.
huge.
Yep.
You got someone sitting in an open house, whether they're watching the football game or they're just, that nowadays they're not doing that. They're on Instagram or whatever, and they're not looking there, popping their head up or anything. That versus being attentive and doing that little extra bit of work. Like, we know this is an entry level point home. I know that this house looks terrible. I'm going to do my best to sell it. But I'm also going to bump into buyers. And just knowing, like, oh, well, what are you interested in? This one's not for me. Oh, okay, great. What are you interested in?
What are the alternatives? Yeah.
And if you don't provide those, they're going to go around with their phone.
Oh, for sure.
On Redfin or whatever app they've got.
For sure.
And they're going to be looking at it. And with that, your name's at the top.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So they take it with them, and they're flipping through, and they may look at it online as well, but you're with them
You're associated
all day long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had, my first sale was a couple that I met there. I gave them that. They went and looked at a house. They came back about 3 hours later. I was wrapping up, and the guy was like, hey, we saw this place, pointed it out on my little list. We went to this one. We dug it. I'm like, awesome. Like, that's great. And then he said the agent was a moron. And that was the example. He said he sat there on the couch, didn't answer any questions, had no idea about the neighborhood, really didn't know much about the house, kind of ignored us. And then he said, will you write an offer for us? I'm like, heck yeah, I will. It's my first deal.
Wow. That's great.
And I just hammered. I mean, that was I sat every Saturday, every Sunday that I could, and I did the same thing over and over again. And I still do that today. I always bring a list of whatever's going around, and everyone kind of looks at me like, people aren't going to grab that.
Yeah.
And they do.
Okay. That's
you know what I mean?
Of course they do.
Because sometimes they've got their hit list, but there may be something that they missed. So, I scatter the price point a little bit. I kind of open up the area a little bit. So it's like, hey, if this is something else, and so I still do that to this day.
That's brilliant. That's great.
It was awesome. I was so stoked. I was like, wow, and they were so cool, like such cool people, and they were come back and like, I'm the guy you want to write with. First deal I ever did, and I told them that too. I'm like, you guys are my first clients.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
But I got a great mentor, and like, we're gonna get through it. But they were cool with it. They were like, that, like, you helped us. Like,
It's also a lesson learned for so many agents that are newer, that are so insecure. I always say the first person who gets in front of them that earns their trust and that they believe is going to be resourceful and committed to them is the one that they're going to do business with. It's not necessarily the most prolific producer at all. So you're case in point.
And as I said before I heard this, it's just the way you handled the testing thing. As you do one thing, so you do others. And then next thing you know, you're providing that little extra at the open house, and people are seeing that, and then they're going to other open houses, or people aren't even hitting the basics. And then, as they see you do that extra piece, they get confidence that you'll be able to handle the transaction. And again,
Right.
interesting putting it out there right away, because a lot of times I would say if they don't ask, I wouldn't mention it.
Yeah.
But putting it out there and then answering that objection immediately also, and I have a mentor who's
been in the business forever.
20 years and really
great guy.
really,
And Pete was the one that helped me through that. I mean, that was, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
First listing.
God, man, I got into this business when like stuff was hitting the fan, like the market had collapsed. Everyone thought I was nuts for leaving my career originally.
Yeah.
My first listing was an agent out of KW in Largemont. And they didn't want him to list his own house. Like so he was like, well, you listed for me. And he was going through, it was a short sale and then foreclosure. So they were losing it.
So 2008, 2009, something like that.
Yeah. So I listed his home, and I did everything there too. Did all the marketing, did all the brochures, all the collateral. And it was really, really tough time. We had created a short sale package for him. So we were going to the bank for approvals and doing all of this stuff. We finally got an offer right before the bank was like, we're about ready to foreclose. Got an offer, they accepted it, the buyer backed out, and the bank was like, you've got 4 days.
Wow.
And if you don't get it done, you're out. And there was this guy, Mark Vasquez, who I still know to this day, had come through, and he was like kind of interested and whatever. So I called him and I said, hey, Mark, throwing a Hail Mary here, but these guys are going to lose the house. It's gone. They've got 4 days to get a replacement offer, because he knew that the offer came in and he was kind of bummed.
Yeah.
So he didn't actually have time to put his offer in yet. So I'm like, we've got a 4-day window, and when that 4-day window closes, their bank is taking it, and God knows when this thing's coming back on.
Yeah.
So if you can get it together, this is what the price is, this is what they accepted, these are the terms that they're good with, we can make it happen. And literally like called me the next day, he's like, we're in.
Wow.
I love it.
And it was like, because the guy's name was Tim, the guy that I was representing, was like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I got a Hail Mary. One dude that I could go to that I'm like, he showed interest.
Yeah.
I have no idea if it's going to work, but
Yeah.
but let's throw it out there. And he came through.
That's a pretty good first listing.
Yeah. And how
story.
long was that into your career? How
That was my first year.
first year?
I was, so for that year, I was Rookie of the Year. For
Okay.
Largemont.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
That's-
Doesn't surprise me,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
fun.
Okay.
That was gnarly. I mean, that was one of those like, holy crap. Like, is this going to flow? Like, is it going to happen? Because it was 12th hour, fourth quarter, last inning, all of those things combined.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're taking my house away, Craig, and they're not, it wasn't a cash for keys deal either.
Yeah.
They were like, move your stuff. We're coming in. You defaulted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, and we were able to, with that offer, we were able to get them a move out, like a bonus, or whatever, like a move out, a sum so they could
Right.
move.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, that was my first one.
So Rookie of the Year,
So Rookie
year
of the Year,
one,
year one.
very exciting.
Yeah, that was fun.
What, if you can take yourself back, how did you process that? What did that mean for you moving forward in terms of your own expectations, your own goals?
I was really stoked. I mean, like I came out of a long-term career in a business that I had, like, I didn't make what I made. I took a step back for sure.
Yep.
But knowing that, like, in a time that was really difficult, Joey, who we all both know,
Yep.
was like, you're doing stuff that I've never even heard of.
I love it.
Like, you're trying. I'm like, I have no idea, man. All I'm doing is like figuring it out as I get there, and like working through it.
Yep.
And that was like no joke, legit, like REO,
Yep.
pre-foreclosure, short sales, trust sales, you name it.
Yep.
Like, it was in my bag of tricks.
Yep.
And it was unbelievable. I was like, I guess I'm just like the guy that attracts all the crazy stuff.
Right. Because of your willingness to embrace uncertainty and adapt and evolve and be resourceful.
And it's also crazy, it's crazy times. And you can't expect any deal, really. I don't really expect any deal to be easy from the get-go. Number one, I always sort of say expect the unexpected, because including talking to clients and saying, hey, look, here's the deal. It's why you get into business with somebody who has experience and has resources. It's not sort of, if, it's more like when. When is there going to be an issue? And I'm here to guide you through that. And I'm going to be the one that is not going to say the sky is falling. I'm going to say, here's how we work through it.
Yeah. That's such a key, and so many people don't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's almost, you would think it's common sense.
Yeah.
But it's not that common.
But it's not that common.
We were working with an agent this morning who probably would have closed a $6.5 million deal with our assistance, and she basically just, good agent too. She just didn't ask for our help because we also know the listing agent. And then it just got blown up a little bit in between. An offer came in too low. The seller got annoyed, didn't want to deal with that buyer anymore. And then she had something in addition to just price and terms to compete with.
And it makes me think, is knowing Craig, so often like ego and pride get in people's way. And I always say asking for help is a sign of strength. And I 100%. Know that's how you operate. And
without a doubt.
Leverage other people's strengths, because we all have our own unique strengths. So like embrace other people, the right people, and help them get things done, and including being a mentor and all that. Like there's a reason that Pete was happy and willing to mentor you. You were a great pupil, right? It's a two-way street,
But I reflect on my background, and when I was in the tech industry, I was a sales guy. I was working with engineers, but I had an engineering staff. So I could go to you and talk about CPUs or DSPs or whatever, and I knew enough to be dangerous, but I knew that when I got to here, I call him. And he comes in as my support and pushes it through. I bring the data sheet. I understand what you're talking about. I understand what the requirements are. Now I've got this guy over here that's the real specialist. I'm like, hey, man, jump into the mix. So I was really used to kind of like bringing in outside sources.
Yeah, you're great at that. And that's having also, again, humility and a level of self-awareness to know where your strengths are and where your levers are elsewhere that are your trusted resources, right?
Without a doubt, And again, for me, it's like I want to make something versus nothing. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people,
that's a great point.
And I've had that with the same thing. I've had newer agents be like, hey, I want to bring you in on this listing appointment. I'm like, I'm always available. And they don't, and then I talk to them, and how'd it go? I'm like, I didn't get it. I'm like, well, should have called.
Some is better than none.
Should have called.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to split it up. I'm like, well, you didn't make anything.
So nothing to split.
Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing to split.
And they're also, even with splitting it, not only is there nothing to split, but it's the difference between being in the game and not in the game.
Totally.
Really top realtors that we talk to regularly, they'll be like, sure, bring it to me. Let's see it. Let's go. If it's real, let's go. And most people will not.
They're not worried about how it's getting cut up. They're just want to be in the game, and they'll let the rest.
Let's get it closed. And everybody put a little money in the bank. And have a happy day. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty simple to me.
What a good what a good philosophy. Again, when we say this stuff, we talk about it so many times. It seems so basic.
But people get so protective over their clients. It's like, I'm holding on, Josh. I'm not going to let go of you. I'm not going to let anybody come in, and you're not going to take that guy from me. Well, you're not going to make a dime off of that guy if you don't bring somebody in. Because they don't have that. They don't have that ability. And a lot of times, it's the ability to even create the relationship.
For sure. And that's where that's where all of your background in sales and has made such a difference. You came in, and I always talk to people about what is their superpower.
Yeah.
Anyone that comes into the game at any point, really, they're going to have some strengths that other people aren't going to have, and they're also going to have some weaknesses, and it's okay. It's okay. We know that.
Yeah.
Identify your strengths and then figure out how to backfill for the weaknesses.
What would
I
you,
can talk
so
to
to that point, like what would you consider you to
My
be?
superpower?
Yeah, I have an
Yes.
answer, but that's, I'm like, let me
I
ask.
can pretty much talk to anybody. Like, I'm very non-threatening. One of the best compliments I've had in my career, I took over Xerox nationwide when I was in the tech world. And one of the principals called and said, I want to set up a meeting. So I called the director of engineering. I'd never been in there, never. Just took over the account. Can we come out next week? We've got a principal in town, would like to do a presentation on this digital signal processor. Yeah, I'll get the team together. Super, I was like, thank God, like, because you don't want to fail. Principal coming into town, you're like, holy smokes, like, am I going to kind of pull this off? And the guy's last name is White, so we kind of had this, like,
There you go.
little bond. I'm like, Mr. White, help a brother out, like, I'm coming in and I really need your help. And we went in, and it was this almost like auditorium in a way, like speaking room. It was huge. We had like 30 engineers show up, and I kind of did a brief introduction. Just thank you guys for everybody coming out. This is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to hand it over to so and so. He's going to take it from here. I'll do a quick wrap up, and then we're going to let you go. So at the end, as we're coming out, he was like, "I've never seen this before, but everybody knew your name, and you knew them. Never seen that." And I was like,
Wow.
Thanks, man. I'm like, so that's good? He was like, no, it was crazy. He's like, everybody knows. He was like, oh, thanks, Craig, for coming out. It was really appreciated. And I was like, thanks, Bob, and thanks, John. And I mean, a lot of times they had badges on, so I would look at it and just, connect. And he was like, that was phenomenal. I was like, thank you. And that's, I may not be the smartest guy in the world, but I can connect with people really well.
And honestly, the truth be told, I was going to say you're a connector.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. That was what your superpower. And then
how do
value
you,
in that.
and then how do you take your superpower and optimize that in what we are. And I think being a connector that's an obvious superpower in sales for sure. And yet, how many people don't maximize that? And then also, connection is, of course, comes very naturally. And then there are also some things that you can that are basic. Do a little research before. You're gonna meet. You met the wife. You know a bit about her. Go on LinkedIn and find out about the husband before you meet them.
100%.
That sort of thing.
Those are things.
Do some homework,
and I did that, and I still do that to this day. If I meet somebody randomly, I'll kind of do a Google search. Who are they? What are they? What are they about? What kind of interests do they have? I mean, I try to connect with people on a professional and personal level a little bit because I like that bond myself. Some people you can't. I've got a hedge fund manager that I've known for years. Dig him, great guy, but it's business. He's not going to talk about his watch collection or his cars or where they had dinner. He's not interested in that. It's like, we've got a plan. Let's focus on that. And I have to learn to read that and know that I can't, I'm not going to go down that path with you.
Which you're good at. Very good.
So I have advice to ask. I went to an event a few days ago, and one of my very fancy podcaster friends invited me, and we had to the back the back area thing, and we struck up a conversation with a guy who's one of the most famous directors on the planet, and there was such connection, because I'm good at that. I'm good at the connection.
For sure.
There was such great connection, and we talked for like 45 minutes, and after, he, instead of saying nice to meet you, he gives me this big hug. I mean, that's an example of the connection. But I didn't ask him for his phone number because do you ask one of the world's biggest directors for their cell phone? I mean, I need help with that. So what do I?
I mean, that's a tough one.
What do I do? I mean, if you do nothing, you get nothing.
Yeah.
And I sort of did nothing. I mean, I could follow back up or whatever, but.
I mean, I'm kind of an organic person as well. Like I think my conversations come organically. So I'll kind of give somewhat of an example of this that happened just the other night. So I was out at an event, it was a real estate event, and there was a principal of a company that was there that's based in Orange County. And he was like, hey, I'm building a home up here off in Brentwood. And one of the other guys was like, hey, we're up there. Like we can, and this dude's like angel investor, probably worth close to 100 million, something stupid, like the house that he's building, they're going to turn it for probably $5.5 million. So it's not like, big 30, crazy. 40, $50 million home. So he's like, yeah, that would be great. And we started talking, and actually, we were all car guys. So we started talking about cars. So we had a little bit of that kind of connection. And then he was like, well, I got to go back down to Orange County. And I said, hey, if we're boots on the ground. If you want us to bounce up there and check it out, we're really good. And he was like, that would be great. I'd love that. And then I'm like, before you leave, what's the address? And I'll blast you my information. So I just text me your info. Yeah. And he did it, text real quick. And I was like, so I'm just going to send you my contact and we'll be in touch. So sometimes that,
I think that's a great example. It's what I always use, the get the homework, when networking, look for the homework.
And in that case, it may be like, I don't know if you have like a common restaurant in common, or a drink or something, and like, hey, Josh, we should go, I know a great place that's got a bourbon, we should go grab it one day.
Yeah.
And like have that connection and say, let me blast. And a lot of times it's me initiating it. Paul, let me send you my info. And then normally the response is back is like, okay, cool. Or they'll either like push it and call. So then you have theirs. Then it's like, let me put your name and my number. So I try to I'm not super good at like pushing through when it's uncomfortable. I'm more like in that moment of, hey, you said you dug the Dolce Vita, which I just went to last week, and it was cool, super cool. And you've never been, just go grab a drink and maybe. And
I'm going to say
I'm not hesitant. I'm not hesitant usually, and I come home with the phone number all the time. Like,
I can't imagine you not.
Like this, the chief people officer of a publicly traded company, that we had lunch with, and it was, and I think the resistance, if I were coaching myself, I would say the resistance is resistance that I created.
Totally, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So like everyone's human.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants to feel,
bleed red.
Everyone wants to feel respected, acknowledged, liked. Come on.
Yeah.
So like that's how my mind goes there all the time. Like if you connected, he's interested in remaining connected to you.
Yeah.
And it's just always like take the first step, because most of the time no one does. And
that's
nothing.
right.
I ran into a random guy at Trader Joe's
Right.
who had an EBITDA shirt, and I'm like, I couldn't help but say like, wow, cool shirt. I have one too in a different color. And what do you do? And I just and then at the end, quickly, because we're checking out, I'm like, hey, I'd love to get your number. Let's go out for lunch and whatever. And if I didn't do that, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. So I do it. And now we're connected and we've exchanged some texts. And,
it's good.
And here's the thing, because I just
everyone's
mentioned,
afraid to make the first move. I'm a huge believer, make the first move.
And I used an illustration of weakness, which is really in my superpower.
Yeah.
So that's not really the issue I have. I'll tell you the issue that I have is I get the number.
Yeah.
And then I don't follow up. And then after a certain amount of time, it gets weird, right? It's like, if I get the number and it's like, oh yeah, I'll text him or whatever, and then I don't do it. And it's like, 3 months later, the guy's not going to remember the conversation we had. Yeah. So
you got
now I've got the number, and it's 6 months later. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with the number? I'm going to do nothing. So that's really my weakness.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do with that? So you're getting the number.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at follow. I mean, I'm pretty good at that. So I met a guy at like Bass Pro Shops like about 2 months ago. I like to fish, right? So I'm like, picking stuff up, and him and his wife are talking. Ends up the guy's name's Craig as well, but he goes by
You got
Alan.
White, you got Craig.
Yeah, he goes by Alan. So I'm
Right.
like, well, how is that? You know, we were talking, and he was waiting actually he was shopping for a gun for his wife, and I have a little bit of interest in that. I'm like, wow, that's kind of trippy. So, you know, he's like a car guy as well, and I kind of find out he does angel investing, and he's got this tequila, and I'm like, wow, you know, I like that too, and I invested in this healthcare company. And I was like, we should connect, you know, maybe go for a drive, you know. So he sent me his info, and I texted him the next day. I was like, hey man, it was super cool meeting you. And there's like a car drive that I do occasionally with this group, and I'm like, hey man, there's going to be another, and you live in San Diego, but it's going to be in Long Beach, so maybe we can meet in the middle, you know. So I'm pretty good at that. Has it translated into from a business perspective? You know, not really, but a lot of this is just developing relationships. And
Sure.
Once they know, and this, you know, he's got, you know, his friends that he knows that live up here, and hey, I've got a friend that lives up there, you know, like to me, it's a lot of it is business driven, and a lot of it is just personal driven, you know.
Yeah,
So,
plant the seeds.
That's the next thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like making the connection. Okay, check, I got that. You know, doing the follow up. You know, not so great. And then the next step is converting that to business, which I'm now back into my strength zone a little bit. But I definitely know people that will make the connection, they'll do the follow-up, but then it's the conversion to let me handle your real estate needs.
Yeah. The guy that I met a couple nights ago, already texted him, right? So that I'm planting the seed with that, but that was a business connection,
Sure.
right? So that the transition from personal to business is pretty quick because we discussed it already.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
The guy in San Diego, we're still developing a kind of a friendship, you know, and what you hope is like, hey, this is what I do up here.
Yeah.
You know, if you have friends or people that are looking, you know, this is what I do. So I've planted that seed. Has it beared fruit yet? Not really, but you know, I guess not everyone will. But you hope that you leave enough of an impression that if it does come up of like, hey, I know a really good guy and he's in LA. If he can't do it, I know that he'll get somebody that can take care of you.
When you have, and just the affinity that you've talked about, and you have that, then, you know, just a reminder, you know, every once in a while peppered in with the regular communication that you have about cars, you have about fishing, or you have about the gun purchase, those different things. Just, hey, you know what? Just to remind you, like if you have anybody that needs help up in LA, I'm
a lot of times, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll be like, hey, if this listing just came on, so I sent this to Craig. I don't know why he calls himself Alan. So
he has such a great
exactly.
name.
I'm like, come on, man, you know,
and your good friend Al.
Yeah, my good friend,
good real estate.
Yeah, my good friend Alan in real estate.
Yeah.
So, like there was a listing that I saw come on in San Diego. And I'm like, hey, I know that you're down in Encinitas. This is a pretty cool space. Just was thinking about you guys.
Yeah, that's smart.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like, you know, here, but it was kind of like, hey, by the way, this just came on down in your hood. Like maybe I don't know if you're looking or not, but you know, if you're driving around on a Sunday, you know, and you got the wife out, maybe swing by, you know, and people
are always interested in what, you know, I love my house. I love where I am. And an agent on our team is listing a house not far away, it's like super tricked out. Believe me, I'm interested. I have no interest in buying it. I am not going to move, but you know, I want to see that house. I want to see, you know, where it is, you know, how far away from me, what's the price eventually going to be. I'm highly interested.
Yep.
It's always good knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So take us now as the career starts to gain momentum. Tell us a little bit about the evolution beyond your first year. What's and I know you got into leadership, so maybe a little bit of segue into that.
I've moved around a little bit. I think probably everybody knows that. And it's probably a little bit of an inherent nature by my background in the tech industry because there's so much movement. So I went to Rodeo Realty in Sunset Strip, probably one of the best moves I've made. Sid, who is the owner, is still a friend to this day. kind of took me under his wing a little bit. We met all like maybe once a month or something when I first started. And that kind of opened my eyes to a different area. You know, I was in Largemont Village, and it's tiny, right? And you kind of think like, I was so new to the business. I really hadn't expanded, like, where can I go and what can I do and what other properties are out there? What other neighborhoods are there to explore? Because I kind of lived in the area too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. I started, my career started kind of progressing. This is a really weird, and we all know this, it's a very lone wolf business. So I didn't have a lot of direction. So having a little bit of guidance, like Pete initially said, Sid was like, you know, do these things and, you know, keep doing your open houses, keep following up with your clients, keep doing all the things you're doing. I got a call one afternoon, and it was, hey, I've talked to a few people at the Sunset branch, and I have a position open for a branch manager in the Palisades office.
Mm-hmm.
And would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, holy crap, you know, I don't know. In the tech world, if you're moving from sales to management, it's kind of it's a step up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe this is an interesting, you know, like I've had management experience in the past and really kind of loved what I was doing. I do like mentoring people. I don't know if it's mentoring. I like helping, guiding people along the path. So I did it. I put my hat in the ring, or my card in the hat, or whatever you want to call it, and said, yeah, I'd be totally interested in doing that. So I took on that role. Very interesting.
How long was that role?
Almost, I think, like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you selling as well, or?
Minimally.
Okay.
Really not really. He didn't want you to sell at that point. He was very direct about office every day, you know, like recruiting a lot. So that was. And
what were like the big takeaways? What did you learn?
Good Lord. I mean, some things I don't want to say on this, you know.
Maybe those are the things we need to hear.
Yeah. Well, you know, the big takeaway for me was like I saw people that were selling a lot of real estate. And I feel like I kind of got into management when my career started to hockey stick.
Yeah.
Like I was really kind of gaining some momentum. And I don't regret a minute of it. It was super incredible experience. I was able to recruit some great people that are like still successful today at other companies and still there. So I had a really, really good time. But my takeaway was I can elevate my business if I really want to. Based on just the knowledge and the experience that I had there.
It gave you perspective, seeing it
from a different angle.
Yeah,
sure,
100%.
Yeah.
We do the same. We look at.
It's interesting.
It is interesting because we look at how some realtors, you know, in our view, are phenomenal, and they don't have nearly as much business as somebody else that we like.
Don't consider.
That we don't consider phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And parsing out that difference.
And it's interesting. I mean, it's still hard to really parse that out.
It is.
It's very much an art.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an art and a science for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes people, I mean, and it's kind of the old adage, like sometimes you are in the right place at the right time, and that business starts flourishing for one person when you're like, how are you doing that when this person is like 10x better? You know, like how are you getting that?
Yeah.
And sometimes people get the opportunity, and sometimes people don't have, they have one skill set that they're really good at, but like you were kind of talking about, like they don't branch into, I can communicate really well, but I can't execute. I can't convert that communication into like executing for a client.
Well, anytime you're an entrepreneur or you have your own business to whatever degree, you have two businesses.
Yeah.
And one is getting clients and the other is doing the work. And for better or for worse, the first one, which is getting clients, is more critical than doing the work. I never suggest anybody they short shrift the work or anything like that.
Yeah.
And you see the people that are like so hardcore or so steadfast about getting the business, and then they're sort of iffy once they get it.
Yeah.
And they will be more successful, if you're looking at volume and money earned, they'll make more money, I'll put it that way, than somebody who is kind of iffy at getting the business.
Very
and
knowledgeable
then
and skilled is
it.
less important than
and
just...
then kills it.
Yeah.
You know, we have, it's being in management as long as we have. I mean, there's a guy that I walk around and, you know, say the smartest guy in real estate, and you know, and he's on our leadership team, and also had a very good sales career for sure, very good. However, not as good as many others that he knows so much more than.
I think people get stuck in the planning. Like the first listing that I had, super nice guy, writer, very articulate, but it was like, I want to plan my postcards out before I send them. You know what I mean? And you're like, dude, it's been a month.
Yeah.
It's dead
perfection.
now.
I'm
You know, it's
laughing already.
you know, and you're like, you're over planning.
Yep.
And you're over like thinking this.
Yep.
You just need to get it out and go. You know, like it's like the you know, analysis paralysis. You know, they get in there and they're overanalyzing everything, and this font should be this color and this should be that, and you're like, I guarantee you, the 4 seconds that it's from here to here, they're not going to even notice the font.
Yeah.
What you want to do is make enough of an impression and have enough volume hitting somebody that they remember you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to remember
It's
that
the whole,
purple
you know,
color
the
or the
qualities
green
and the
color.
quantity,
You know,
and it is tough. You know, I've been doing more and more on social media. I've gotten more and more traction, and there's just a certain amount you have to post to stay you know, relevant in the algorithm, and you know, I fell short of that, so I'm like, made a commitment, and I put out a post. I put out a post yesterday, and the concept was good, and the editing was good, and I looked at it, I'm like, it's really not that good, you know, but I made a commitment. I'm like, you know, I told my guy that helps me, hit send on it, you know, and then one of the comments I got was like, this is the worst, because it was like a sales technique thing. It's like, this is the worst ever. Like, you need to study, not give lessons, and like all this stuff in the comment section, and, you know.
Wow, interesting.
And the first thing I re-looked at the video. I'm like, I think he's right, you know. And then you know, my second inclination was I looked at the other comments, and the other comments were quite positive, and I'm like, maybe I'll just take down his nasty comment. And then,
you have to look at
then my third inclination was, I'll just do nothing.
And then you have to look at the source, right? So what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
sitting back critiquing.
You're sitting back critiquing behind the
tough,
keyboard, and then but are you producing? Are you doing something?
Right.
Or are you just criticizing because you can criticize?
Yeah.
I take that stuff for granted. So like I don't you know.
Are you?
I'm not gonna make everybody happy.
Are you? That's a good one too.
Yeah. You can't please.
Are
everyone.
you using social media?
I am. I hired a guy to do a lot of social media for me. I really haven't done like personal engagement yet, like this type of environment, and I like that in a way, and you know, talk about teaching old dog new tricks. It's something that I'm still learning to go through.
For sure.
Yeah, I like doing that though.
The good news is the ball moves so fast that you know, people that have been doing it for 5 years, you know, only the last 6 months of their knowledge is relevant.
They're only 6 months ahead.
Yeah,
5 years.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. And that's. But then you have to just continue to stay relevant, which is a challenge.
Yeah, that's an avenue that I'm looking at. I mean, everybody's like, you know, you're like, everybody's moving from Instagram to TikTok or YouTube or all of these things. So, you know, I'm trying to, I mean, that's talk about things I'm working on currently. I'm trying to get more educated on that, and how do I jump into that game.
So 2 years in management.
Yeah.
And what got you out of that?
I think it was just time, you know, like I really figured out what I love about the business. I really enjoyed management. Don't get me wrong. I thought that was a lot of fun. I liked a lot of aspects of it, but I didn't feel at that point I was done selling yet. You know, like I learned a lot about like running the business. And I think that helped me kind of think about how I would be running my business versus like managing. I really did enjoy that. That was a lot of fun. but I just kind of thought I need to get a few more years under my belt in selling.
Well, dipping your toe in is a great way to do with management because, like you say, in tech, going from sales to management is a step up, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. In real estate, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
Because there certainly are a lot of, again, what are your goals? There are a lot of realtors in our offices that are making a lot more than the managers in our offices. Now that
and I saw that. I think that's true. I think it just depends on what your personality profile is, like what job matches your your need at that moment too. Yeah. So I kind of really wanted to try to push a little bit and see what I could do.
And what do people love doing? I had a manager for this office that was our number one agent, and she was very successful as the manager and did not make nearly as much, and that was the start of her management career, and she never looked back. It's just, she just preferred it, and there are a lot of people that are, I think, to be great at real estate sales is having a real passion for making that match between the house and the family and that sort of thing. Yeah. That's where I see
and there's a lot of salespeople that are really bad managers. It's
no
a totally different skill set.
Oh, yeah.
And a passion that you have, like you have that passion, right? And you both have that passion of like mentoring and managing and really the collaborative kind of, creating that environment. A lot of people just don't have that in their bag. DNA, it's just not part of their thing. Yeah. And that's I think in any business. You can be a great sales guy and a really bad manager.
If you're able to be great at sales, we're unclear if you're going to be great at management. We've been down that road hundreds of times. Yeah. And then if you're great at sales, you move to management, you're a manager for a while, sales will always be easier for you then. It doesn't work in both directions. And I think, and I could see why you would be great at both, because you really have to look at other people's perspectives. You have to really meet people where they are, and all sorts of go on and on about that.
And you have to care. You know, like you guys genuinely care. Yep. And you want people to succeed, But I mean, part of that is, I think there's some motivation out of that, right? Because it's like when my agents succeed, everybody makes more, including them.
For sure.
But there's also just that inherent nature that you have of like, I like doing this. Yeah. And that makes that makes a good thing.
Making a positive impact.
We were talking about it earlier in our coaching session, and I was talking about how much I enjoy helping a realtor who was at KW, not in my office to begin with, so there's really no economic benefit to begin with, but that's how I met him, and I met him through working on some panel, and then he went out on his own, so there's also no economic downside to that, and he'll still call me for advice, and I just love talking to him, and how that's not the case with everybody. So I think another lesson in it is be the person that other people want to help, and then you'd be surprised how much help will come your way. But as a manager, I love helping, to be honest, the people who are, I switched it from love to help people, which then I started to find out it was not true. I would go and I would try and try and help somebody and be like, boy, that was terrible. Maybe I don't like to help people anymore. And then very quickly, then enjoyed it again. Almost in my next interaction, I was like, wait a minute, what's the difference? And it was the willing. So it's like, help the willing. They don't need to do what I tell them to do, but just do something.
And I always come back to those that are grateful.
Grateful. Grateful is nice.
It is. And those are the people that you want to help. Because there's some, and I have it to this day, some couple people walk in my office and, what should I do? And I want, some guidance. And then you tell them and they don't do it. And then they come back and you're like, no. don't come to me if you're not going to.
It's wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, it's wasting my time. You know, like I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
And you know this very well about me, and you do too, I think. You know, like I'm more than willing to help anybody that walks to my office. But if I give you advice and then you disagree with it and don't do it and then come back again, you know?
Yeah.
Like find the other guy. Like, you know, no offense, but like,
it's amazing.
I got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Time is precious.
Yeah.
You know?
It's definitely not management 101 because I think it took me 10 years to learn it. Was in the position or positions that I was in, people, realtors, even managers would just come into my office and some people are very good at it. And they would just dump dump their to-do list on me or they'd come in and give me assignments and I would accept the assignment at some level because I felt like I was supposed to or whatever it was. And then a great manager, mentor taught me, give them an assignment. Just give them a small assignment. So you're like, hey, you know, I want you to do this and, you know, could you help me with that and all that sort of thing. You're like, okay, sure, I'd love to do that. So, you know, the first 2 steps on us doing this thing together is, you know, here are the first 2 steps. So, you know, here you go. You just do these 2 things and then come back and see me and we'll
look at it together.
And we'll you know, we'll take step 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's like my office cleared out. Yeah. Man, it was unbelievable.
But then the ones that come back and do it,
then you want to help them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So the pivot back to sales, take us.
A pivot back to sales was kind of trippy for me because my license was still hung in the Palisades. So I actually decided to leave. It's almost, I really hadn't sold in a couple of years. You know, like I wasn't active. So it was really re-engaging with some of my past clients. It was doing a lot of the things I did when I started, which was like, let me sit open houses. You know, I didn't have a lot of listings. I had a couple, like, you know, 1 or 2 people that I knew that were selling in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I helped them and I leveraged the crap out of that. I'm like, if anybody knows me, I'm a flood mailer, right? I mean flood mail.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you every week.
Yeah.
From before I list to after I list. And I'm going to keep flooding you for probably another 4 months after that. So I kind of, it's like guerrilla marketing and what I call like micro farming. Because I'm not, like there's agents that dominate a neighborhood. I wasn't taught that when I started. So I kind of regret that now a little bit as I'm more further on in my career. I think if you can dominate a neighborhood, you're golden. I didn't have that. So where I would get a listing, I would just hammer. Like, I'm going to beat you up every week and you're going to hear from me. And I would door knock and I would make phone calls. And that helped. Oddly enough, it pissed some people off because I would get phone calls of like, take me off your mailer for God's sakes. Like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
What were you sending?
So if it was a listing, it was like coming soon, even though we're not supposed to do it. And I'm on the board. Now, wasn't then. Like I would do a coming soon, a just listed. I would send something in between until we opened escrow. It could be, I would do an agent introduction. So this is me, this is Craig White, this is who I am. So I'd introduce myself. I would do like, if I wasn't in escrow again, like, and this is literally every week. Like I'm relentless with that. So I would do like something happening in the neighborhood. And then it would be like, okay, now we're in escrow. So I would go in escrow, and then through the next 30 days of escrow, every week I would do something. And I had a girl.
And so how many homes were you targeting around this?
500.
Okay.
Yeah, I would hit 500 of the local homes.
And you would door knock also.
And I would door knock, yeah.
Because I think that the you know, it's like the prospecting versus marketing, and I do think that marketing is way less effective without the prospecting. But if you're doing the prospecting and also having a listing as a flag
helps
planted for sure. Yeah.
But you're right. If like, it's even things I can. I don't know if we want to talk about it right this second, but it's things I'm working on literally now with the guy that does my online marketing. I'm like, we need to coordinate better, because if I don't know when you're sending this out, and I can't make a follow-up call in the next couple of days, we're losing opportunity.
Yep.
Right? So we need to be a better team about
Yeah.
doing that. And it's the same with the listing. If I'm just sending postcards out, sometimes I would get listings from that, because people would, because I create postcards that are a little bit different. Typically they're folded, there's something unique, maybe smaller, maybe different texture, maybe thicker stock. So like I'll do something that's a little bit unique, which I like, because it's like,
It's going to stick
pattern
out
instead
now.
of it is
pattern interrupt. There you go.
right. So it's at least it's going to be like, oh, okay, versus pick up and throw. It's then throw. You know, like I get an extra second, you know, of that. But yeah, you have to follow up with action, right? Like, so then if I would door knock and Sid again gave me some really good advice. You don't always have to talk about real estate. That helped me a lot. I mean, in my area, we had Melrose nights, and they would block down Melrose.
Oh, yeah.
So I would go out the day of, and no, not selling real estate. Just want to remind you that Melrose nights is happening, and our streets are going to be packed. So if you need parking on the street, get it early.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a great tip. Yeah.
So like sometimes it's just tips, you know, or sometimes it's just relating to people. And I have roses, which people don't know about. And I'm like, I had this old lady that was down the street. Oddly enough, I mean, I got a listing from because of her. Because I walked up and she's like, no, not selling. I'm going to die here. And everybody says that. I'm going to die in my house. I'm like, hopefully not. But just curious, like I was being like,
disclose that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to disclose. If you do it on the porch,
right?
You know, but you know, I'm like, you know, no, I just live up the street. I'm a real estate agent. Understand you're not selling, but I have roses. Yours are amazing. How do you keep them so small? You know what I mean? And that was actually a genuine, like, thought of mine. You know. So I think if you're genuine and authentic about it, and sometimes like I handed out pens and people were like, because pens are cheap. You can get 1,000 pens for like $200 or something stupid. And I would go hand out pens and they're like, oh, no, I'm not selling, just handing out pens today.
Right.
And people were like, what's the catch? I'm like, it's a pen. You know what I mean? Like there's no catch.
Right,
I'm just giving out pens today. You know what I mean? And you just make that introduction.
So now here we are.
Yeah.
What's the future for Craig White?
Oh, good Lord, man. That's like the
like give us
grenade of a question.
Right. But like tell us, like, it's a question we ask often.
Yeah.
What does the ideal world look like for you 3 years from now, 5 years from now? What would have to be in place for you to feel ecstatic if you were to project yourself ahead?
You know, my business has morphed quite a bit. You and I talked about this. All three of us actually did earlier this year. I'm doing a lot of both commercial and residential.
Right.
And right now I'm trying to find the balance in that, where I can still pursue the commercial side of the business and be successful there, but not because the process is so long and different.
Yep.
I don't want to lose momentum on the residential side.
Sure.
Unless I completely switch paths and go completely commercial.
Right.
Which I don't think I would do.
So you're trying to find that balance.
I'm trying to find the balance.
Yeah.
Literally, I've been working on that this year.
Okay.
And you know that.
Yep.
Because we've talked about it. So it's very. So I guess my projection in the future would be have a good balance of that. I like both aspects. The commercial brings me back to my corporate days, where it's very structured. It's either a yes or no. It might make sense financially, and it doesn't. And if it doesn't, can we make it look better financially for that person? It's numbers, less emotional. And then I just opened escrow in a place in the Palisades with this couple that I adore. And they're awesome. And I like that connection part of it. So finding a balance between that
and leverage, I would argue, is
and
the
leverage.
key. To
And I'm not saying this is the answer, but one natural blending of that is smaller multifamily. So you know,
I just sold an 11 unit property, and
like
that was really good.
And that gives you enough of the number crunching, and there's a lack of emotion, and it's also I believe it's very easy for great residential agents to understand multifamily I mean, can you imagine multifamily in the neighborhoods that you already know? It's going to be easy. You know, that's easy. And then you'll actually bring something different and great to the table.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I've liked about the commercial side. So what I found in doing commercial deals was there are some amazing agents that are out there doing phenomenal numbers, but the approach is much more hands-off. They let the attorneys do it. They're kind of facilitators in a way. They're kind of, moving the pieces around, but are they really engaging in the challenging parts? A lot of that is done through negotiating from client to attorney and attorney to client, so they're kind of going back and forth. My approach has been more residential style, where I'm really guiding them through the process and not necessarily holding their hand, but making suggestions, really interacting. How do we overcome some of these problems, like problem solving, versus letting a lawyer making $1,000 an hour talk to another lawyer making $1,000 an hour, trying to figure out how they're going to make their client come together.
Yeah.
You're going to spend a ton of money lawyer talking to lawyer. Yeah. Because they're going to bill you forever.
For sure.
If I can come in and inject a little bit of like, hey, what about this as a solution, or what about this as an option, then at least it's bringing some. So I like that part. Yeah, it's bringing a little bit of value.
Last question, we'll go to fire round.
And I got one more before we go to fire round. That's important.
Okay. You're on the board. I know you also have represented a lot of buyers.
Yeah.
Pressing question of the day is, how do you see this change? Do you see it as a huge change? Do you see it as changing the business?
So I think of this in twofold, actually, because I think that this is going to bring opportunity, right? I think that there's new business models that can be created in an environment like this that can create some opportunity. Is that going to be created in like the ultra high end? Probably not, but I do think that there's some opportunity there. From a personal perspective on how it's impacting my business, honestly, I'm not really worried about it. We've gone through changes. We had to do a PED before. We've had to do all these documents that we needed. A lot of people are balking about a buyer-broker agreement. My only complaint is it's like 8 pages long, and it's really hard to have somebody sit down and be like, before you show me something, I've got to crank through 8 pages. So I think that there's initially, I'll give it kind of an example, real time. Did an open house this last weekend in Sherman Oaks, and this guy came through and he knew everything, super smart, knew about the settlement, how's it going to go through, how's it impacting, and I think my rebuttal or my explanation was good. If your agent's bringing you value and they're working with you for Palisades as the example, almost a year, and we just opened escrow, they're absolutely deserving of their fees, and he totally agreed. The flip side of that, and he said that, am I going to commit to you to be my agent for a period of time? I don't know. We just met each other. So am I going to sign an 8-page document? And this was him saying this to me. Yeah. Am I going to sign an 8-page document with you, go through that process when I'm really not clear if I'm going to do that? I don't know. I may just keep going to open houses. So I think that there's going to be an educational time window of like, how, and that's going to be the caliber of the agent.
For sure.
If I can't convey to you what my value is, and I can't develop that trust, you're going to need somebody now more than ever to get you through some difficult humps. And you said this earlier, there may not be any, but there's always going to be them. Yep. You're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yep, for sure.
Right? We're always waiting for that.
Is to be expected.
Exactly.
Yep.
You never think it's going to happen until it happens, and then when it happens, do you want the surgeon that's been working on your heart or working on hearts for 30 years that invented the process on doing that, or do you want the dude that's just out of college? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you want somebody value. That's the pro coming in that says, we've got it.
I've seen this instance.
Yeah. Exactly.
We didn't predict this, but I've seen this instance, a dozen times before. Here's how we've worked through it.
We're going to cool, collected, resourceful.
We're going to navigate through it, and we're going to get you to the finish line. And at the end of this, you're going to have keys to an awesome home, and you're going to be super excited about that. But I promise you, we're going to get you through that. Yeah. They don't know it until they're there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And this guy also was the guy that said, I've put 4 offers in on places in the last year and haven't gotten any.
So I understand you're running for office. I'm obviously kidding in like this political climate, but running for the board here, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, please.
So thanks for that. I've been on professional standards on the grievance committee for about 3 years. Very educational. What I think what people don't understand about the grievance side is if there's a complaint and that's filed, like I'm part of the committee that reviews and determines if it's legitimate or not, and we kind of filter out a lot of good and bad, and it happens. Things happen in our business. And I think it's good to be held accountable to that, but it's really not about how are we going to punish this person. Yeah. It's how are we going to educate them to make sure that, they're getting the right guidance to make sure that they're not doing the same thing over and over again.
Learning from the mistakes.
Totally. And again, kind of back to my comment earlier, we are a lone wolf business. We're in this and we do our best. And I think everybody some don't have the best intention, but I think everybody really wants to do the best that they can. We're all trying to make a living, So I've been on that for 3 years, and then this opportunity came up to be for the vice chair for Region 4, which is West Hollywood to Eagle Rock.
Okay.
And that's more like public facing. So we're like people running for city council for West Hollywood, we would be interviewing them, and we would, like, if we're going to endorse you as the candidate, and the endorsement from the board of realtors means like we donate to your campaign, you're interacting with us. We want to make sure that you're a candidate that actually is considering what is important for the real estate community, right? And what intrigued me about that was there's a lot of people, it's voluntary, right? So it's not, like, I'm not getting paid, you know what I mean? I am not getting paid to do grievance, but I've learned a ton, and it's an amazing thing from a learning experience. And my opinion about that is I want agents that are actually, like, I'm carrying a bag every day. I'm in the trenches, I'm working, I'm doing deals, I'm making things happen. I know the difficulties that us as agents have in the real estate community to get stuff done, right? So for me, having somebody that represents that, knows how it works, knows the challenges that we face, and then can really, like, talk about that on the community level. This is what we need. This is, like, we want to help the community, because as real estate agents, our jobs are community centric, right? Like, we want the community to thrive.
Yep.
So having somebody that represents that, I think, is really important. So being that I'm like an active agent that's high producing and has been out there for a long time, I think it's good to be doing that.
So I was going to ask you, what's your ultimate motive? It sounds like it's just making sure communities are strong and connected, and
100%.
and just good places for people to live in and grow up.
Yeah. And we interact with the community in that sense, with commercial and residential, and how does that, if there's limitations on commercial real estate that maybe, I mean, look, everyone's worried about housing. Maybe there's some, repurposing of certain properties that could be used for residential that are commercial currently. Like, how are we working with the community to make their kind of community better, and how does that impact the real estate community? Is like, West Hollywood is a great example, and I didn't know this until recently. The West Hollywood community is over 80% renters. So how do we convert some of those renters into homeowners, right? So if I'm working with city council people, it's what kind of programs are in place for you, and how do we interact together to make sure that we can get those people and into something that they can afford and have ownership. And once you have ownership in a community,
A different complexion.
Completely. It's it's leasing versus owning, right?
Yes.
Like, there's a sense of accomplishment, but also a sense of, like, pride,
Permanence too, and
permanence and pride in that ownership.
Pride is a big
pride in that
better.
ownership of what I have. So that was my kind of driving force. I've encouraged other people to get involved, because I do really think it's important for agents that are active and, like, working every day to be part of that kind of community. And it's not I don't want to say it's not fun, because it actually is kind of fun. It's very interesting, but it's really important from just I think our realtor community.
Yeah,
to
kudos
have
to you, man.
Thank
You got
was
my
gonna say,
endorsement.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I
likewise.
appreciate it.
Very
Yeah.
thoughtful and
really
doing
says a lot.
coming
Yeah.
from contribution for
Yep.
sure, which we
Yeah.
always talk about. So let's hit you with the
Lightning
fire
round.
round.
Yep.
Fire round.
The fire round.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Fire around, baby.
So I think probably any of these questions could be,
man,
we could go hours into them.
Yeah.
But
It's designed to be quick
Yeah.
and instinctual.
Quick and
what
painless.
what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Ooh, good Lord, man. That's not easy. I think, perfect happiness is good life balance, but also making sure you're doing things for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the gym and work out. I like to go fishing.
Yep.
Like make sure that you incorporate something in your life that brings fulfillment.
What's your greatest fear?
Failure.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
God, that's a tough one. Personality, maybe?
What do you consider an area that you feel you could improve most upon, that you would really like to improve most upon?
Organization, for me. I'd like to be more organized. I have a tendency to fly by the seat of my pants sometimes. And
What attribute do you admire most in others?
honesty, being genuine, I think is really important. Yeah.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Survive until 55.
Which is what, if I may ask?
I'm currently 55.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
What talent would you most like to have?
I love the cello.
Wow.
So if I could ever, I actually looked at it not long ago, but if I could play the cello, that would be amazing to me. Yeah.
What's your most treasured possession?
God, I have a picture of my dad. He had a 1978 Porsche 911 S.
Wow.
And I have a picture of him with that Porsche. That's probably my pride possession, oddly enough. I drive Porsche. So.
Who do you most admire?
God, I admire a lot of people. If like where I get most of my inspiration was from my father and my mother. They raised a handful of a child in me. I admire people in that are in service leadership. I admire you. I admire both of you tremendously. When you come from a place like you just said, when you come from a place of genuinely wanting to help and serve, I admire that a lot. I guess that's more of a trait, but person, I don't know. There's a lot that I admire.
So you go on a hike, sort of an arduous hike, big hike in LA maybe, and you finally get to the top of the hike, and down below you are your loved ones and friends and colleagues and clients and everybody in the community, and you shout one thing. What do you shout?
Probably can't say it on air, but I'm not thank you, because I don't think I've deserved thanks from people, but maybe like I love you all or something, like something pretty simple.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Thanks, man.
Craig, thank you so much.
So genuine.
Really.
I love it. An inspiration,
Really
brother.
amazing.
I appreciate you guys so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah.